The Endeavour drifted through the void, its hull scarred by 3 years of deep space travel. Captain Janice Reeves stood before the main viewport, watching as Korthak Prime materialized from the cosmic darkness. What should have been a verdant world pulsed with an ugly orange glow, its surface cracked and bleeding light like infected wounds. "Atmospheric readings are concerning," reported Lieutenant Chen from the navigation station. "Oxygen levels are critically low. The electromagnetic interference is off the charts." Dr. Sarah Martinez, the expedition's xenobiologist, joined Janice at the viewport. "The planetary surveys from 50 years ago showed dense forests and clean oceans. This is—" She paused, searching for words. "This is ecological collapse on a scale I've never seen." Janice nodded grimly. Their mission had been straightforward: establish first contact with the Korthaki, the native species that long-range sensors had identified as technologically advanced. The Terran Alliance needed allies, and the Korthaki had seemed perfect candidates: intelligent, organized, and inhabiting a resource-rich world. "Captain," Communications Officer Reynolds called out, "I'm picking up transmission fragments. Multiple sources, all using different frequencies. It's like they're not talking to each other. Can you translate any of it?" "Working on it. The linguistic AI is finding patterns, but—" Reynolds frowned at her console. "It's aggressive. All of it. Battle reports, territorial claims, threats." Engineer Tom Nakamura emerged from the engine compartment, wiping grease from his hands. "Whatever's happening down there, it's affecting our systems. The electromagnetic storms are playing havoc with our instruments." Janice made her decision. "Prep the shuttles. We go down with minimal crew, Sarah, Chen, Reynolds, and myself. Tom, you maintain orbit and monitor communications." "Captain, with respect, we don't know what we're walking into," Chen protested. "That's exactly why we need to find out." The shuttle Harmony descended through Korthak Prime's tortured atmosphere, bucking against electromagnetic storms that lit the sky like angry gods. Through the static-filled viewports, the surface revealed itself in all its devastation. Where forests once stood, crystalline structures jutted from the earth like broken bones. The seas had turned the color of dried blood, and vast fissures split the continents, glowing with an inner fire that spoke of deep geological wounds. "My God!" Sarah whispered. "What did they do to their own world?" Chen piloted them toward what sensors indicated was the least hostile landing zone, a plateau overlooking a valley where the energy readings were relatively stable. As they descended, movement caught their attention. "Are those—" Reynolds began. "Structures," Janice confirmed. "Military formations." The beings below were unmistakably the Korthaki, though they bore little resemblance to the proud, sophisticated race the Alliance had expected to find. These creatures were massive, standing nearly 8 feet tall, with thick, muscled frames covered in what appeared to be both natural hide and technological augmentation. Their skin ranged from deep green to mottled brown, and protruding tusks gleamed with metal caps. "Orcs," Sarah breathed. "They look like orcs from ancient Earth mythology." "Let's not anthropomorphize," Janice cautioned, though privately she thought the comparison apartment. "They're an indigenous species facing some kind of crisis." The shuttle touched down with a grinding thud, and immediately the external sensors registered movement. The Korthaki were approaching, but not in formation. Instead, 4 distinct groups converged on their position from different directions, each maintaining careful distance from the others. "For separate factions," Chen observed. "Look at the markings." Indeed, each group bore different symbols and colors. One faction wore deep blue war paint and carried weapons that crackled with electrical energy. Another bore red markings and wielded what appeared to be flame-based weaponry. The third group was marked in earthen browns and grays, their equipment looking more primitive but somehow more solid. The fourth faction wore stark white and silver, their gear the most obviously technological. "We're surrounded," Reynolds noted with admirable calm. "No," Janice corrected, studying the tactical display. "We're being evaluated. Each group is maintaining position relative to the others. They're not working together, but they're not attacking either." She stood and checked her translation device. Time for first contact. The airlock hissed open, and Captain Janice Reeves stepped onto the scarred surface of Korthak Prime. The air was thin and tasted of metal and ozone, but breathable. Her team flanked her, hands near their weapons but not drawn. The 4 Korthaki groups had formed a rough circle around the shuttle, each faction occupying a quarter of the perimeter. They were even more imposing up close, towers of muscle and scar tissue, their eyes gleaming with intelligence that seemed at odds with their brutish appearance. A figure from the blue-marked group stepped forward. His tusks were capped with conducting metal, and electricity arced between his fingers as he spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "Sky-come things?" The translation device rendered his words with mechanical precision. "You land in contested territory. You declare for which clan you speak." Before Janice could respond, a representative from the Red faction interjected, flames flickering around her clenched fists. "They land in Flame-Render territory. Their first words must be to us." "Lies!" snarled the brown-marked leader, whose very presence seemed to make the ground more solid beneath his feet. "The ancient boundaries place this land under Stonebreaker claim." The 4th leader, whose white and silver markings seemed to shift and change like liquid mercury, spoke with a voice that seemed to come from multiple directions at once. "Fools! The Sky Things bring technology. They will speak with the Texavant clan, as is logical." The tension was palpable, and Janice realized that her next words could either spark a 4-way battle or create an opportunity for something greater. "I am Captain Janice Reeves of the Terran Alliance," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the thin air. "We come seeking the Korthaki people, whom we had hoped to meet as equals and potential allies. But we find instead—" She gestured at the devastated landscape. "We find a world in pain." The Stormcaller clan leader, for that was how she had begun to think of the blue-marked faction, narrowed his eyes. "You know nothing of our pain, Skything. For 800 cycles the clans have fought. The old ways are gone, the green time is ended, and only strength remains." "What happened here?" Sarah asked, her scientific curiosity overriding protocol. It was the Stonebreaker leader who answered, his voice heavy with ancient grief. "The Sundering. When the clans could no longer share the world's bounty, when each demanded dominion over all. The Stormcallers broke the sky. The Flame-Renders burned the forests. The Texavants poisoned the waters with their machines. And we—" He paused, looking at his earth-stained hands. "We broke the bones of the world itself." "But that's impossible," Chin interjected. "No civilization would willingly destroy their own biosphere." The Texavant leader's form shifted, revealing more of the advanced technology integrated into his body. "You underestimate the power of hatred, Skything. When all must be won or lost, when compromise is seen as weakness, destruction becomes inevitable." Janice felt a chill that had nothing to do with the planet's thin atmosphere. "How long do you have?" "Perhaps 50 cycles," the Flame-Render leader admitted. "The world's heart grows cold. The storms grow stronger. The fires burn out of control. Even our technologies cannot forever hold back the ending we have made." It was then that Janice made the decision that would change everything. "Then we're going to fix it," she said simply. The 4 clan leaders stared at her in surprise, then broke into harsh laughter. "Fix it?" the Stormcaller roared. 8 centuries of war have brought us to this precipice. You think 4 Skythings can undo what the mightiest clans of Korthak could not prevent? "Not alone," Janice replied. "With you. All of you. Together." The laughter died. The silence stretched across the devastated plateau, broken only by the distant rumble of geological upheaval and the crackle of uncontrolled energy discharges. The 4 clan leaders regarded Janice with expressions ranging from disbelief to contempt. "Together?" The Texavant leader's voice carried harmonics of electronic processing. "You clearly do not understand Korthaki nature, Skything. We are not a species that cooperates. We are conquerors, warriors, dominators. It is our strength. And it's killing you," Dr. Martinez interjected, her scanner beeping as it analyzed the atmospheric readings. "Your strength is literally destroying the only world you have." The Stonebreaker leader rumbled a laugh like an avalanche. "The learned sky thing speaks truth. Yet knowing the poison and drinking it are different things. The clans have tried to unite before. Each time, it ends in greater bloodshed." "When?" Janice asked sharply. "The last great gathering was 112 cycles past," the Flame Render leader said, her fires dimming to a low glow. "The Stormcallers broke the peace by claiming dominion over the western cloud farms. The tech savants supported their claim in exchange for territorial concessions. We and the Stonebreakers withdrew from the talks. And within a cycle, the Cloud Wars had begun," the Stormcaller admitted. "Those conflicts scarred the sky itself. The rain has never fallen cleanly since." Lieutenant Chen studied his tricorder readings. "The electromagnetic disturbances in the upper atmosphere, they're artificial, aren't they? Remnants of weapons fire. The storm nets still burn," the Stormcaller confirmed. "We sought to control the weather itself, to rain lightning on our enemies. Instead, we broke the very patterns that brought life to the world." Janice looked at each leader in turn. Despite their fearsome appearance and obvious hostility toward each other, she could see something else in their eyes: exhaustion. The bone-deep weariness of beings who had fought so long they had forgotten what they were fighting for. "What if I told you that my people have technology that could help restore your world's atmosphere?" she said. "Terraforming techniques that could clean your oceans, neutralize the toxic storms, even help regrow your forests?" The tech savant leader's form shifted, his technological components analyzing her words. "Terraforming. Yes, we have theoretical models for such processes. But the energy requirements would be enormous, and the temporal scale extends beyond multiple generations." "Not necessarily," Sarah said, pulling out her tablet and projecting a holographic display. "Our bioatmospheric processors can work in conjunction with native ecosystems, if any remain. They accelerate natural healing processes rather than replacing them entirely." The hologram showed lush forests regenerating, clean water flowing, and clear skies. The 4 clan leaders stared at the images with something approaching hunger. "This is possible?" the Stonebreaker asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "On other worlds, yes," Janice confirmed. "But it requires cooperation. The processors need to be maintained by people who understand both the technology and the local ecosystem. More importantly, the healing can't work if the damage continues. The fighting would have to stop." "Impossible," the Flame Render leader said flatly. "You ask us to betray our nature. I'm asking you to evolve it," Janice replied. "You said you're conquerors and warriors. Fine. Conquer this." She gestured at the devastated landscape. "Wage war against extinction itself. Turn your strength toward healing instead of harming." The Stormcaller's electrical aura flared. "Pretty words, Skything. But you still do not understand. Even if we wish to attempt this madness, which clan would lead? Who would the others follow? The moment one clan gains advantage, the old patterns reassert themselves. That's why we're here," Janice said. "An outside perspective. A neutral party. We don't have a stake in your ancient conflicts." "But you would," the tech savant observed. "If you commit to this world's healing, you become invested in its future. You become another faction, one with powerful allies but also powerful enemies." Janice nodded slowly. "Yes. And we need to choose carefully which clan to work with first. One that's committed to the long-term vision, not short-term gain." The 4 leaders exchanged glances, and she could see the calculations beginning. Each was wondering if they could be the chosen clan, if they could gain the advantage of alien technology while their rivals remained ordinary. "There would be conditions," she continued. "Strict ones. Any clan that partners with us must commit to a complete cessation of hostilities for a minimum of 10 cycles. They must provide technical support and labor for the restoration projects. And they must work toward eventual reconciliation with the other clans. You ask us to trust our enemies," the Stonebreaker said. "I ask you to trust your future," Janice replied. The negotiations stretched through the long Korthaki day, with each clan leader arguing their case for why they should be chosen as the humans' partners. The Stormcallers boasted of their mastery over weather and energy systems. The Flame Renders emphasized their knowledge of chemical processes and planetary geology. The Tech Savants demonstrated their advanced understanding of complex systems and computational theory. But it was the Stonebreaker leader who surprised everyone. "I will not argue our superiority," Thorgrim Earthshaper said, his voice carrying the weight of deep stone. "We Stonebreakers have perhaps caused the most lasting damage to Korthak Prime. Our deep mining operations cracked the planet's foundation. Our mountain-breaking weapons split the continents. If there is to be healing, it must begin with those who understand the wounds most intimately." The other clan leaders reacted with suspicion and scorn. "The Stone Grubbers seek to gain advantage through false humility." The Flame Render leader, Pyra Moltenheart, snarled. "Agreed," said Zephyr Lightningbringer of the Stormcallers. "This is manipulation." But the Tech Savant leader, who had introduced himself as Network Node Prime Designation Alpha, tilted his head in what might have been consideration. "Interesting. The Earthshaper admits culpability but frames it as qualification. There is logic in this approach." Janice studied Thorgrim carefully. The Stonebreaker leader was massive even by Korthaki standards, his hide bearing the scars of countless battles and his hands permanently stained with the earth he had worked. Unlike the others, his technological augmentations were minimal, just a few tools integrated into his armor rather than wholesale replacement of biological systems. "Why?" she asked simply. Thorgrim's deep-set eyes met hers. "Because I am tired, Skywoman. Tired of fighting wars that can no longer be won. Tired of watching the world die beneath my feet. My clan has always been the most direct of the four. Perhaps it is time to direct our strength toward building rather than breaking." "Words," Pyra spat, her flames flaring higher. "The Stonebreakers have never shown mercy to their enemies. Which is why their commitment would mean something," Sarah interjected, earning sharp looks from all present. "If the clan most known for implacable warfare chooses peace, it sends a powerful message." "It sends a message of weakness," Zephyr retorted. "The moment we show our backs, the others will strike." "Not if we're protected by Skything weapons," Thorgrim said pragmatically. "And not if we make ourselves too valuable to kill." Network Node Prime Designation Alpha's form shifted as he processed this. "Clarification required. You propose to make your clan indispensable to the restoration process?" "I propose to make the restoration process indispensable to all clans," Thorgrim corrected. "If healing the world requires Stonebreaker cooperation, then attacking us becomes counterproductive." Janice felt a growing respect for the Stonebreaker leader. Beneath the brutish exterior lay a keen strategic mind. "What would you require from us?" she asked. "Knowledge," Thorgrim replied immediately. "Your terraforming techniques, your atmospheric processors, your biological restoration methods. In exchange, we provide labor, resources, and most importantly, access to the deep places where the real healing must begin." "The deep places?" Chen asked. Thorgrim gestured toward the glowing fissures that split the landscape. "The planet's wound core. The place where our mining operations breached the magma chambers and created the fire roads that now poison the air. If your healing technologies can seal those wounds, the atmosphere will begin to clear naturally." Dr. Martinez consulted her scanner. "The geological instability is definitely artificial. If we could stabilize the tectonic shifts and cap the volcanic vents, we'd eliminate the primary source of atmospheric contamination," Janice finished. "It's a solid plan." "It's a trap," Pyra declared. "The Stonebreakers seek to lure you into their territory where they can capture your technology and eliminate you at their leisure." "They're welcome to try," Lieutenant Chen said mildly, his hand resting on his sidearm. Thorgrim's laugh was like grinding millstones. "The Sky Warriors have teeth, I see. Good. We respect strength. But this choice affects all of us," Network Node Prime Designation Alpha pointed out. "If the Skythings align with the Stonebreakers, the technological balance shifts dramatically. The other clans will be forced to respond. How? Janice asked pointedly. The three non-Stonebreaker leaders exchanged glances, and she could see the wheels turning. They were already calculating whether to ally against the Stonebreakers or compete for their own separate deals with the human team. You're thinking like generals, she continued. But this isn't a military problem anymore. It's an extinction problem. In 50 cycles, there won't be any clans left to compete for dominance over a dead world. Unless we succeed, Thorgrim said quietly. Unless we actually manage to heal what we have broken. The weight of possibility hung in the air like a physical presence. For the first time in centuries, the Korthaki were being offered something other than endless war. I need to consult with my team, Janice announced. And you need to consult with your clans. We'll reconvene at the next dawn. As the various groups prepared to withdraw to their respective positions, Thorgrim approached her privately. Skywoman, he said in a voice meant only for her ears. There is something you should know. The deep places I spoke of, they are not merely dangerous because of geology. There are guardians there. Creatures that were changed by the deep magics we unleashed. If we are to succeed, we must face them as well. What kind of creatures? Sarah asked, having overheard. Thorgrim's expression grew grim. The kind that were once Korthaki. 3 days later, the alliance between the human expedition and the Stonebreaker clan was formalized with a ceremony that involved ritual scarification and the sharing of blood, a process that Dr. Martinez monitored carefully to ensure no xenobiological contamination occurred. The Stonebreaker settlement, called Forge Deep, was built into the side of a mountain that had been hollowed out by generations of mining operations. The architecture was functional and imposing, with massive stone blocks fitted together so precisely that no mortar was needed. Electromagnetic torches provided light, their energy drawn from the geothermal vents that riddled the mountain. It's actually quite sophisticated, Tom Nakamura observed as he studied the clan's industrial facilities. They've managed to harness geothermal energy without the advanced materials science we use. It's brute force engineering, but it works. Thorgrim guided them through the settlement's depths, introducing them to the various specialists who would assist in the restoration project. There was Gorna Ironhands, the clan's chief engineer, whose cybernetic arms could manipulate metal at the molecular level. Boric Deepsight, their geological surveyor, who had mapped more of the planet's subsurface than any other living Korthaki. And Mira Stonesinger, their only remaining environmental specialist, who had spent decades studying the ecosystem changes caused by the clan wars. She is the last of her kind, Thorgrim explained as they approached Myra's laboratory. The Stonebreakers were never much concerned with subtlety. But as the world sickened, some of us began to understand that strength alone could not solve every problem. Mira Stonesinger was smaller than the typical Korthaki, her hide bearing intricate tattoos that seemed to shift and move in the torchlight. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that made the stone walls resonate. The Sky Healers come at last, she said, her eyes fixed on Dr. Martinez. I have felt the world's pain for so long, I had begun to think it was my own. What can you tell us about the ecological damage? Sarah asked, pulling out her scanner. Everything is connected, Mira replied. The deep fires poison the air, which kills the cloud forests, which stops the rain, which dries the rivers, which starves the soil. But the connections go deeper. The world itself is aware, and it suffers. Aware? Chen asked skeptically. Mira gestured to the stone walls, and as she did, faint patterns of light appeared in the rock. Korthak Prime is alive, Sky Warrior. Not as you are alive, but alive nonetheless. The planet has, how do you say, a consciousness of sorts. And that consciousness is in agony. Dr. Martinez's scanner was beeping frantically. I'm detecting some kind of bioelectric field permeating the stone. It's like a neural network. The world mind, Mira confirmed. It guides the deep magics, the forces that shaped our evolution. But the clan wars have wounded it, driven it to madness. The creatures that guard the deep places are extensions of its pain. Can we communicate with it? Janice asked. Perhaps. But first, we must reach the wound core. And for that, we must go deeper than any Korthaki has gone in 2 centuries. The descent began at dawn, with a combined team of humans and stonebreakers carrying equipment that would have been impossible to transport without the clan's heavy lifting capabilities. The tunnels they followed were ancient, carved by geological forces and enlarged by generations of miners. But as they went deeper, the walls began to show signs of damage that had nothing to do with excavation. Battle scars, Thorgrim explained, running his fingers along deep gouges in the stone. The final conflict between the clans was fought in these tunnels. We sought to deny each other access to the deep metals, not understanding that we were fighting over the organs of a living world. The temperature rose steadily as they descended, but it was not the comfortable warmth of natural geothermal activity. This heat carried an edge of wrongness, a quality that made the humans' environmental suits register contamination warnings. The deep magics are strongest here, Mira warned. They can affect your minds, make you see things that are not there, or fail to see things that are. Define deep magics, Tom said, checking his instruments. I'm reading energy signatures that don't match any known physics. Forces that your science has not yet catalogued, Mira replied. The world minds were made manifest. They shaped us, made us what we are, but they also respond to our emotions, our conflicts. In places of great suffering, they become twisted. As if summoned by her words, a sound echoed through the tunnels, a howling that seemed to come from the stone itself. Movement, Chen reported, his scanner picking up multiple large shapes approaching from the deeper passages. Whatever they are, they're big. The mad ones? Thorgrim said grimly, hefting his massive warhammer. Those who went too deep and never returned. The creatures that emerged from the darkness were almost unrecognizable as having once been Korthaki. Their forms had been twisted by exposure to the deep magics, some growing additional limbs, others stretched into impossible configurations. But their eyes still held traces of intelligence, and unmistakable suffering. They're not attacking, Sarah observed as the creatures surrounded the group. They're trying to communicate. Indeed, the transformed Korthaki were making complex gestures, their distorted voices attempting to form words. Mira Stonesinger stepped forward, her hands glowing with the same harmonics that had lit the laboratory walls. Brothers, she said, her voice carrying deep into the stone. We come seeking healing. For you, for us, for the world itself. The largest of the creatures, whose body had been fused with living crystal, tilted its head and spoke in a voice like grinding glass. Healing comes through understanding. You must see the source. The wound core, Mira translated. They're offering to guide us. Can we trust them? Janice asked. They are in pain, Mira replied. But they are still Korthaki. They want the suffering to end as much as we do. The twisted guardians led them deeper into the planet's heart, through passages that defied conventional geology. Here, the walls pulsed with organic rhythms, and the air itself seemed to whisper with alien voices. The humans' instruments registered energy readings that fluctuated wildly, as if reality itself was unstable. We're approaching something big, Tom reported, his voice tight with strain. The quantum field fluctuations are off the charts. The wound core, the crystal-fused guardian confirmed. Where the deep fire burns eternal. They emerged into a vast cavern whose walls were lined with what looked like veins of molten metal. At the center, a pillar of pure energy stretched from floor to ceiling, pulsing with the rhythm of a massive heartbeat. Around it, the air shimmered with heat and something else, a presence that pressed against their minds like a physical weight. The world mind, Mira whispered. This is where it concentrated after the great wounding. It's trying to heal itself, Dr. Martinez realized, studying her readings. But the damage is too severe. It's trapped in a feedback loop of pain and attempted repair. How do we help it? Janice asked. Mira looked at the humans with an expression of profound hope and fear. We must join with it. Share its burden. But the risk? The risk is that we become like them, Thorgrim said, gesturing to the transformed guardians. Changed. Possibly forever. Janice studied the pulsing energy pillar, feeling the weight of decision. The mission had become something far greater than first contact or terraforming. They were being asked to participate in the healing of a planetary consciousness, and possibly sacrifice their humanity in the process. "There has to be another way," she said. "There is," said a new voice from the shadows. "But it requires trust between enemies." The voice belonged to Network Node Prime Designation Alpha, the tech savant leader, whose form shimmered as he emerged from what appeared to be empty air. Behind him came representatives of the other two clans, Pyra Molten Heart and Zephyr Lightningbringer. "How did you?" Thorgrim began, his hammer rising instinctively. "Dimensional folding technology," Alpha replied, his form shifting to reveal sophisticated stealth systems. "We have been monitoring your progress. The deep magics affect our sensors, but they also provide pathways for advanced translation." "You followed us," Janice said flatly. "We came because the world mind called to us," Pyra corrected, her flames dimmed to a respectful flicker in the presence of the energy pillar. "It reached out to all the clans simultaneously. We felt its pain." Zephyr nodded, his electrical aura crackling with nervous energy. "The deep voices spoke to us in dreams. Showed us visions of what we have done, what we have become. And what we might yet become," Alpha added. "The calculations are clear. Individual clan action cannot resolve the planetary crisis. Only collective effort has sufficient probability of success." The transformed guardians shuffled closer, their distorted voices joining in a harmonious whisper. "Unity is the path to healing." "But how?" Thorgrim demanded. 8 centuries of warfare cannot be forgotten in a moment." "They don't need to be forgotten," Mira said, her hands still glowing with harmonics. "They need to be transformed. Just as the world mind transforms pain into the possibility of healing." Dr. Martinez was studying the energy pillar with increasing excitement. "I think I understand. The planetary consciousness isn't just trying to heal the physical damage. It's trying to heal the psychic wounds, the hatred, the fear, the territorial aggression that caused the problem in the first place." "You're saying the planet is trying to change us?" Chen asked. "Not change," Mira corrected. "Evolve. Help us become what we were meant to be before the old ways divided us." "The deep magics respond to emotion," Alpha noted. "Hatred and fear have fed the destructive cycles. But other emotions might produce different results." "What are you proposing?" Janice asked, though she thought she was beginning to understand. "A joining," Pyra said, her voice carrying none of its usual aggression. "All 4 clans, unified in purpose. Our combined strength focused on healing rather than harming. The Sky Healers as guides," Zephyr added. "To help us maintain focus when the old patterns try to reassert themselves." "And the world mind as, what? A partner in the process?" Janice looked at the pulsing energy pillar. "Can it communicate directly?" "With help," Mira said. "The Guardians serve as translators. They have been changed by prolonged exposure, but they retain their connection to both the world mind and their original clan identities." The crystal-fused Guardian stepped forward, its voice clearer now that all 4 clans were present. "The world mind offers a bargain. Your combined strength to heal the deep wounds, in exchange for knowledge of the greater patterns. You will become more than you were, but you will not lose what you are." "Define more than you were," Tom said suspiciously. "Enhance," Alpha translated. "Expanded cognitive capacity, improved physical resilience, deeper understanding of the world's natural systems. The evolutionary leap that the planet has been trying to guide us toward for millennia. But united," the Guardian emphasized. "The enhancement only works if all clans participate. Individual ascension leads to—" It gestured to its own twisted form. "This. You're asking us to trust our oldest enemies with our lives," Thorgrim said. "I'm asking you to trust your future," the Guardian replied, echoing Janice's earlier words. The 4 clan leaders looked at each other, and for the first time in centuries, the hatred in their eyes was tempered by something else: hope. "What would the process involve?" Janice asked. Mira gestured to the energy pillar. Direct interface with the world mind. All of us together, sharing our thoughts, our experiences, our pain. The barriers between clans dissolve temporarily, allowing the deeper healing to begin. And if it doesn't work? Then we die, Pyra said simply. But if we do nothing, we die anyway. At least this way, we die trying to fix what we broke. The calculations support the attempt, Alpha noted. Current trajectory leads to species extinction within 53 cycles. Proposed intervention offers a 37% probability of species survival and planetary restoration. Those aren't great odds, Chen observed. They're better than zero, Zephyr replied. Janice looked at her team, seeing the same mixture of fear and determination in their faces that she felt in her own heart. They had come to make first contact with an alien species. Instead, they were being asked to participate in a planetary healing ritual that might transform them all. If we do this, she said carefully, we need to establish some ground rules. The human expedition maintains its independence. We're partners in this process, not subjects. Agreed, Thorgrim said. And if someone wants to withdraw from the joining, they can do so without consequence. The world mind is not coercive, Mira confirmed. It seeks willing cooperation, not forced compliance. Then we try, Janice decided. But we go slow, and we monitor everything. At the first sign that the process is harmful rather than helpful, we abort. Understood, the crystal-fused guardian said. The world mind is pleased. The healing can begin. The ritual preparation took 3 days, during which the 4 clans worked together for the first time in living memory. The humans provided technological expertise, helping to create monitoring systems that could track the bioelectric changes during the joining process. The Stonebreakers prepared the physical space, carving focusing circles into the living rock around the energy pillar. The Stormcallers established electromagnetic containment fields to prevent the deep magics from causing uncontrolled effects. The Flame Renders created thermal regulators to manage the intense heat generated by the world mind's concentrated attention. And the tech savants coordinated the complex systems integration that would allow organic and artificial minds to interface safely. It's remarkable, Tom observed as he watched Gorna Ironhands collaborate with Alpha's technological specialists to create bioneural interfaces. They're natural engineers, all of them. They just approach problems from different angles. Different specializations, Dr. Martinez corrected, studying the data streams from her biological monitors. It's like they've evolved into complementary subspecies. The Stonebreakers focus on structural integrity, the Stormcallers on energy management, the Flame Renders on chemical processes, and the tech savants on information systems. Which suggests this division was intended, Mara Stonesinger said, approaching with a collection of crystalline focusing devices. The world mind may have guided our evolution towards specialization, preparing us for this moment. A planetary consciousness that plays the long game, Janice mused. Interesting. All consciousness plays the long game, Mira replied. It's only the short-term thinking that causes problems. As the preparation continued, Janice found herself studying the interactions between the clan members. The hatred was still there, but it was being overwhelmed by a kind of professional respect. When Stormcaller Lightning Weavers worked alongside Stonebreaker Earthshapers to create the power grid for the ritual space, she could see the old prejudices giving way to appreciation for different kinds of expertise. They're remembering how to work together, she told Sarah during one of their evening briefings. Or learning for the first time, Sarah replied. According to the historical records Mira shared with me, the last period of interclan cooperation was over 1,000 years ago. Most of the current generation have never known anything but warfare. Which makes this even more impressive, Lieutenant Chen added. They're basically inventing collaboration on the fly. The night before the ritual, Thorgrim approached Janice as she stood watch over the energy pillar. The transformed guardians had withdrawn to the deeper tunnels, leaving the space to the living. Skywoman, he said quietly, I want you to know that whatever happens tomorrow, you have already given us something precious. What's that? Hope. For 3 centuries, the Stonebreakers have known only the satisfaction of conquest and the pain of loss. But today, watching my people work alongside our ancient enemies, I remembered what it felt like to build something instead of breaking it. The feeling's mutual, Janice replied. My people have been looking for partners among the stars for decades. We've found plenty of species that were too primitive to relate to, or too advanced to need us. But you're exactly what we hoped to find. People who are strong enough to be true allies. Even if we're transformed by this process? Especially then. Growth is what partnerships are for. The ritual began at dawn, with all participants taking their positions around the energy pillar. The humans wore their bioneural interfaces, which would allow them to participate in the joining without being overwhelmed by the alien thought patterns. The clan leaders had undergone temporary modifications to their natural neural structures, expanding their capacity to process the world mind's communications. Remember, Mira said as the focusing crystals began to glow, the world mind experiences time differently than we do. What seems like hours to us may be moments to it, or vice versa. Stay anchored to your sense of self, but be open to new perspectives. Beginning interface initialization, Alpha reported, his form flickering as multiple AI systems came online simultaneously. The energy pillar pulsed brighter, and suddenly the cavern was filled with a presence that pressed against all their minds. But instead of the painful weight they had experienced before, this felt like welcome. Like coming home after a long journey. We greet you, children of flesh and thought and steel, the world mind's voice resonated through their shared consciousness. We have waited so long for this moment of joining. The sensation was indescribable, being simultaneously individual and part of something vast. Janice could feel the thoughts and emotions of everyone else in the circle, but also the deeper currents of the planetary consciousness itself. She experienced the world as the planet did, every forest as a lung, every ocean as a circulatory system, every mountain range as a spine supporting the whole. And she felt the wounds. The places where mining had broken the deep structures, where weapons had poisoned the air, where hatred had literally torn holes in the fabric of the world's awareness. Now you understand, the world mind said. The damage is not merely physical. The patterns of conflict have created psychic wounds that prevent healing. But together, we can repair them. The joining deepened, and Janice found herself experiencing memories that were not her own. She saw Korthak Prime as it had been before the wars, a world of incredible beauty and diversity, where the 4 clans had worked together to create marvels of bioengineering and ecological harmony. She felt the gradual shift toward competition, then conflict, then outright warfare as the clans forgot their original purpose and became obsessed with dominance. But she also felt something else, the world mind's patient love for its children, its willingness to endure pain in the hope that they would eventually remember their better nature. The healing requires sacrifice, the world mind explained. Not of life, but of the patterns that have brought only suffering. The old ways of thinking must be released. Through the shared consciousness, Janice felt the clan leaders grappling with this requirement. Centuries of indoctrinated hatred, of cultural identity built around warfare and competition, were being challenged by the direct experience of unity. We can help, she found herself saying, though she wasn't sure if the words were spoken aloud or transmitted directly. My people have experience with healing old wounds, with building cooperation between former enemies. Yes, the world mind agreed. Your patterns of thought provide a template for transformation. But the change must come from within. We cannot impose healing, it must be chosen. The critical moment came when the world mind offered to show them the future, both the path that led to extinction and the path that led to renewal. The visions were overwhelming, dead oceans and burning skies in one timeline, restored forests and clean air in the other. Choose, the world mind said simply. The choice, when it came, was unanimous. Every participant in the joining, human and Korthaki alike, reached the same conclusions simultaneously. The old ways had to end. The new ways had to begin. But the world mind's transformation was more subtle than anyone had expected. Instead of dramatic physical changes, the participants found their perspectives shifted, their understanding expanded. The clan leaders could still feel their loyalty to their people, but they could also feel the connections that bound all Korthaki together. The humans retained their individual personalities but gained an intuitive understanding of the planet's ecological systems. "It's not mind control," Dr. Martinez reported as they emerged from the joining. "It's more like expanded empathy. I can sense the health of the ecosystem around us, feel where it's damaged and where it's healing. I can perceive the deep structures," Thorgrim added, his eyes glowing with a faint inner light. "The places where our mining operations destabilize the planetary foundations. But I can also see how to repair them." "Energy patterns," Zephyr said wonderingly. "I understand now why our weather control attempts failed. We were fighting the planet's natural rhythms instead of working with them." "Chemical processes," Pyra nodded. "The atmospheric contamination can be neutralized, but it requires precise timing and coordination with the biological systems." "Integration protocols," Alpha concluded. "All systems must work together. Individual optimization leads to collective failure." The transformed Guardians approached, their distorted forms beginning to show signs of healing. "The deep wounds close," the crystal-fused one reported. "But slowly. The full restoration requires time and sustained effort." "How much time?" Janice asked. 50 cycles for basic atmospheric stabilization," Mira calculated, her new understanding allowing her to perceive the planet's healing timeline directly. 200 cycles for complete ecosystem restoration. But the work can begin immediately. Over the following weeks, the change in interclan relations was remarkable. The 4 leaders established the Concord of Renewal, a governing body that would coordinate the planetary restoration efforts. Each clan would contribute their specialized expertise, but all major decisions would be made collectively. The humans, now permanent residents of Korthak Prime, served as advisors and technological contributors. Their terraforming equipment was integrated with Korthaki bioengineering to create hybrid systems more effective than either could achieve alone. "The atmospheric processors are working at 300% efficiency," Tom reported during one of the weekly progress meetings. "The Korthaki biological enhancements somehow optimized the chemical reactions. And our deep core stabilization efforts are ahead of schedule," Thorgrim added. "The human geological analysis helped us identify critical pressure points we had missed. The weather control systems are finally synchronized with natural patterns," Zephyr noted. "We're getting clean rain for the first time in centuries. Chemical contamination levels are dropping faster than projected," Pyra confirmed. "The bioremediation organisms are adapting to local conditions." But perhaps the most significant change was cultural. The younger generation of Korthaki, raised during the restoration period, showed none of the interclan hostility that had defined their species for so long. They thought of themselves as Korthaki first, clan members second. "They're becoming what we were meant to be," Mira observed as she watched mixed clan work teams collaborating on a forest restoration project. "Before the old fears divided us. Your people are remarkable," Janice told the assembled clan leaders during a ceremony marking the first anniversary of the Concord. "In 1 year, you've accomplished more than most species manage in a century." "With help," Thorgrim acknowledged. "The Sky Healers showed us new ways of thinking. The World Mind showed us new ways of being. But the choice to change, that was ours. And it's working," Dr. Martinez added, consulting her latest environmental readings. "The oxygen levels are approaching normal ranges. The electromagnetic storms are dissipating. The ocean chemistry is stabilizing. Most importantly," Alpha noted, "the probability of species extinction has dropped to less than 1%. The Korthaki will survive. More than survive," Zephyr corrected. "We will thrive. And when other worlds face similar crises, we will be ready to help." The vision of the future had expanded beyond just healing Korthak Prime. The combined human-Korthaki alliance was developing into something unprecedented, an interspecies partnership dedicated to ecological restoration and conflict resolution on a galactic scale. "The Terran Alliance will be very interested in formalizing our cooperation," Janice said. A joint task force dedicated to helping worlds in crisis. The Renewal Corps, Pyra suggested. Specialists in healing the wounds of war and environmental destruction. I like it, Janice agreed. And I know exactly where we should start. 2 years after the Concord of Renewal was established, the first interstellar Renewal Corps mission launched from Korthak Prime. The joint human Korthaki fleet consisted of 3 ships: the human vessel Endeavor, now permanently based on Korthak Prime, the Korthaki bioship Deep Harmony, grown rather than built using techniques recovered from their pre-war archives, and the hybrid vessel Unity, created through combined human Korthaki engineering. Their destination was Vexor 7, a world where 2 indigenous species had been locked in warfare for generations, poisoning their shared planet with biological weapons. The distress signal had been detected by long-range sensors, and the fledgling Renewal Corps had voted unanimously to respond. It's remarkable how far we've come, Dr. Martinez observed as she reviewed the mission briefings. 2 years ago, we thought we were making first contact with a single species. Now we're part of an interstellar peacekeeping force. The pattern repeats, Mira Stonesinger noted. She had been elected as the first Korthaki member of the Renewal Corps Governing Council, representing the new unified perspective that had emerged from the joining. Conflict creates wounds, wounds create suffering, suffering creates the need for healing. But healing creates growth, growth creates wisdom, and wisdom creates peace. The mission to Vexor 7 proved challenging but ultimately successful. The 2 warring species, crystalline beings who lived in the planet's mountains and energy-based entities who inhabited the electromagnetic fields around its poles, had been fighting over control of the planet's unique quantum resonance fields. Each species needed access to these fields to survive, but their different approaches to utilizing them had created destructive interference patterns. It's the same basic problem we faced on Korthak Prime, Thorgrim observed during the peace negotiations. Different peoples with different needs, but fundamentally compatible if they can learn to coordinate instead of compete. The solution involved creating a shared management system for the quantum fields, with both species contributing their expertise to optimize the energy flows. The Renewal Corps provided the neutral mediation and technical assistance needed to make the cooperation work. You have given us more than peace, the crystalline ambassador said during the treaty signing ceremony. You have given us understanding. We had forgotten that differences in approach do not mean incompatibility of purpose. The energy dwellers agree, added the electromagnetic representative, its voice crackling through the translation system. We request permission to send observers to learn more about your Renewal Corps methods. By the end of their first decade of operation, the Renewal Corps had successfully mediated conflicts on 12 different worlds. Each mission taught them new techniques for conflict resolution and ecological restoration, expanding their understanding of how to heal the wounds of war. Korthak Prime itself had become a model for planetary recovery. The atmosphere was clean, the oceans were clear, and the forests were returning to their ancient glory. The 4 clans still existed, but their roles had evolved from warrior bands to specialized teams within the greater Korthaki civilization. The Stonebreakers have become the galaxy's finest terraforming engineers, Janice noted during a ceremony celebrating the 10th anniversary of First Contact. The Stormcallers are renowned for their weather control expertise. The Flamerenders are the most sought-after atmospheric chemists, and the tech savants have revolutionized biomechanical integration. And together, Thorgrim added, we have become something greater than the sum of our parts. The success of the Renewal Corps had attracted attention from across the galaxy. The Terran Alliance had formally adopted their methods as standard procedure for first contact situations involving conflict. Other species had requested training in their techniques. The concept of healing rather than conquering was spreading throughout known space. We're creating a new paradigm, Alpha observed during one of the Governing Council meetings. Instead of expansion through conquest, we offer expansion through cooperation. Instead of resource extraction, we practice resource restoration. Instead of cultural domination, we facilitate cultural evolution. The world mind is pleased, Mira reported after her regular communions with the planetary consciousness. It sees the pattern spreading to other worlds, other species. The healing we began here is becoming a galactic phenomenon. But perhaps the most significant development was the emergence of a new generation of beings, human Korthaki partnerships that had resulted in hybrid children. These youngsters, raised in the unified culture of the renewed Korthak Prime, represented something unprecedented, a truly interspecies civilization. They're not half human and half Korthaki, Dr. Martinez explained to a delegation of visiting scientists. They're fully both. They can interface with human technology as naturally as they commune with the world mind. They think in terms of systems and connections rather than boundaries and divisions. They're the future, Janice said simply. Not just of our two species, but of galactic civilization as a whole. The hybrid children, when they came of age, would become the next generation of Renewal Corps leaders. They carried within themselves the living proof that cooperation between different species was not only possible but transformative.